The 2000s gave us some of the most creative sci-fi movies, but many of them were forgotten. Not because they were bad, but because they were too strange, too smart, or simply ahead of their time. These films explored time travel, memory, identity, and alternate realities long before those ideas became mainstream. Some became cult classics, others disappeared. Today, 10 forgotten sci-fi movies from the 2000s that were ahead of their time. Impostor. Impostor is a forgotten sci-fi thriller built around one simple but powerful idea. The story follows a scientist working on advanced weapons during a war against an alien civilization. But one day, he's suddenly accused of being something he never believed possible, an impostor. And from that moment, everything changes. The more he tries to prove who he really is, the less certain everything becomes, not just for the people hunting him, but for himself too. What makes the film so interesting is how it plays with paranoia, identity, and the fear that your entire life could be built on something false. It's based on a story by legendary sci-fi writer Philip K. Dick, which explains why the concept feels so strong. Visually, it has that raw early 2000s futuristic style, but its real strength is the tension and the mystery at the center of it all.
Don't you think I'd know my own husband?
Come to me.
Pitch Black. Pitch Black starts like a simple survival story, but quickly turns into something much darker. The story follows a group of passengers who crash land on a remote planet after their spaceship is destroyed. At first, survival already seems difficult enough. No rescue, limited supplies, and an environment they barely understand. But the real danger hasn't even begun. As they explore the planet, they discover that once darkness falls, something deadly comes out to hunt. What makes the film stand out is how well it builds tension. The planet itself feels harsh and unforgiving, but the darkness turns it into something far more terrifying. The movie also introduced Vin Diesel as Riddick, one of the most iconic anti-heroes in sci-fi. With its mix of survival, horror, and brutal atmosphere, Pitch Black became much more than just another space thriller. Cypher. Cypher is a hidden sci-fi thriller built around paranoia, identity, and manipulation. The story follows an ordinary man who gets hired as a corporate spy. His job seems simple: attend meetings, record information, and stay unnoticed. At first, everything feels routine, but very quickly, he realizes nothing around him is as simple as it seems. People act strangely, information doesn't make sense, and the deeper he gets involved, the more dangerous everything becomes. What makes Cypher so interesting is how it constantly keeps you questioning what's real. It builds a world where memory, loyalty, and even personal identity can be controlled and rewritten. Directed by Vincenzo Natali, the film has a cold, sterile, visual style that perfectly fits its corporate dystopian setting. It's quiet, smart, and one of the most underrated, mind-bending sci-fi thrillers of the early 2000s. The Jacket. The Jacket is a sci-fi psychological thriller with one of the most unusual time travel concepts of the 2000s. The story follows a war veteran suffering from memory loss after returning home. When he's accused of a crime he barely remembers, he's sent to a mental institution and placed into an experimental treatment. At first, it seems like nothing more than brutal therapy, but during the process, he begins experiencing something impossible, visions of the future. And the more he sees, the more he realizes that time may not be as fixed as he once believed. What makes the film stand out is how personal it feels. It's not really about time travel itself, but about trauma, fate, and the desperate need to change what feels inevitable. The film stars Adrian Brody and was directed by John Mayberry, creating a cold, dark, and deeply unsettling atmosphere. It's one of the most overlooked sci-fi thrillers of the 2000s.
Some kind of behavior modification on his patients.
Frequency. Frequency takes a simple sci-fi idea and turns it into a powerful, emotional story. The film follows a man who discovers that through an old radio, he can somehow communicate with his father, 30 years in the past. At first, it feels impossible, but once they realize the connection is real, they begin changing events. And that's when everything becomes complicated, because every small change in the past creates new consequences in the present. What makes the film work so well is that it's not really about time travel. It's about family, regret, and the chance to save someone you already lost. The film stars Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel, and their father-son relationship carries the heart of the story. It's smart, emotional, and one of the most underrated sci-fi thrillers of its time.
We gotta do something and try to stop this guy.
Pandorum. Pandorum starts like a space survival movie, but quickly turns into something much darker. The story follows two crew members who wake up aboard a massive ship drifting through deep space. The problem is, they barely remember who they are, where they're going, or what happened to the rest of the crew. At first, the ship feels empty, but the deeper they explore, the more they realize something is still alive in the dark. And whatever happened here was far worse than they imagined. What makes the film stand out is how it mixes sci-fi, horror, and psychological tension. It keeps you guessing not only about the creatures on board, but also about the truth behind the mission and the terrifying condition known as Pandorum, a form of madness caused by deep space isolation. The movie stars Ben Foster and Dennis Quaid, both carrying the fear and paranoia perfectly. Dark, claustrophobic, and intense, it remains one of the most underrated sci-fi horror films of the 2000s.
Бойся того, что будет дальше.
A Scanner Darkly feels unlike almost any other sci-fi movie from the 2000s. The story follows an undercover agent in a future where a powerful drug has spread through society, destroying memory, identity, and trust. His mission is to monitor dangerous users, but the deeper he goes, the harder it becomes to separate the job from his own reality. And that's where the film becomes truly unsettling, because little by little, he starts losing control of his own mind. What makes the movie so unique is not just the story, but the way it looks. The entire film uses a rotoscope animation style, giving everything a dreamlike and unstable feeling. Directed by Richard Linklater, it stars Keanu Reeves, Robert Downey Jr., and Woody Harrelson. Based on a story by Philip K. Dick, it feels even more relevant today than when it was released.
Into the heart.
Timecrimes. Timecrimes proves that you don't need a huge budget to make brilliant sci-fi. The story follows an ordinary man who gets pulled into a strange chain of events after witnessing something unusual near his house. Trying to escape, he ends up inside an experimental machine and suddenly finds himself sent back in time. At first, it feels like a chance to fix everything, but every decision he makes only creates new problems. And the deeper the time loop goes, the more dangerous and complicated it becomes. What makes the film so effective is how tightly it's built. There are no wasted scenes, and every small detail matters. It's one of those movies that becomes even more interesting the more you think about it afterward. Directed by Nacho Vigalondo, Timecrimes became a cult favorite among fans of time travel stories. Primer. Primer is often called one of the smartest time travel movies ever made. The story follows two engineers who accidentally discover a way to manipulate time while working on a completely unrelated project. At first, it feels like a breakthrough, something that could change everything. And of course, they start experimenting. But the deeper they go, the more complicated everything becomes. Because in Primer, time doesn't work in a simple way. Every choice creates new layers, overlapping timelines, and versions of events that quickly become almost impossible to track. What makes the film so unique is how realistic it feels. It doesn't slow down to explain itself. It throws you directly into the complexity and expects you to keep up. Written, directed, and starring Shane Carruth, Primer was made on an incredibly small budget, which makes it even more impressive.
No, I can't. Can't what? I can't think of any reason why I would.
The Man from Earth. The Man from Earth might be the simplest movie on this list, but it has one of the biggest ideas. The entire story takes place almost in a single room. No action, no visual spectacle, no huge effects, just one conversation. It follows a university professor who, before leaving town, tells his friends something impossible, that he has been alive for over 14,000 years. At first, nobody believes him, but as the conversation continues, the details of his story become harder and harder to dismiss. And that's what makes the film so powerful. It takes one simple idea and turns it into a deep discussion about history, religion, science, and human existence. Written by legendary sci-fi writer Jerome Bixby, it proves that sometimes the strongest science fiction needs nothing more than a great idea.
Not quite human, taking not the blood, but the life force itself.